All right, so Jake, the program that you actually qualify for when you choose to enroll is going to be the Elite Family Care Plan. And it's going to be a weekly contribution of $25 a week. Okay. Now, why would anything be $25 a week? Well, remember, we base it off that hour power principle that we discussed before. So it's as simple as taking that first hour of work and setting it aside to protect your family. Then you take the other 39 hours plus any overtime you receive, you do with it as you please, knowing that the bills are covered and your family's protected. So, in other words, if you and I worked together and the boss brought us into the office on Monday and said, Jake, Thor, you guys are the hardest working people I have. I want to give you an extra $25 a week. Are we going to go buy a new house or car with an extra $25 a week? Of course not. But if it's reversed and we have to pay an extra $25 a week for our benefits, are we going to have to sell off everything that we own just in order to make ends meet? No. So it's safe to say $25 on either side of our paycheck isn't drastically going to affect things, but knowing that we use that $25 to protect our family would definitely give us a peace of mind, wouldn't it? And that's exactly why the union set it up that way. Okay. Now, let me ask you something, Jake. Have you ever been on the financial side of arranging a funeral before?
No.
Well, you're very fortunate, man, but I'm sure you've probably seen some of the horror stories with the way funerals are being dealt with nowadays. And the reason that it happens is, life insurance doesn't work the way it used to. Now, do you have any idea about how much the average cost of a funeral is nowadays?
No idea.
It's about $12,000 for a traditional funeral, and it can be upwards of $25,000 depending on what type of arrangements you want to have. Okay. And the way that it used to work is when you had life insurance, you would be able to bring those life insurance policies into the funeral home, and the funeral director used to hold those policies as collateral. But nowadays, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. On average, it takes 60 days and in some cases up to a full year for a life insurance policy to pay out. And the reason why they withhold that money from the families is because they make money off the interest. So the longer they keep that money from you and your family, the more money they make off the interest. And the unions got sick and tired of seeing that happen into families. And that's why they created this freedom of choice plan. What this is a permanent, portable, prearranged funeral for the rest of your life. So the day that you pass away, all that your family's going to do is bring this certificate in any funeral home of their choice. They hand this over to the funeral director. All the expenses are taken care of. There's no checkbooks, there's no credit cards. It pays an immediate sum of money on the spot. And the funeral homes love this benefit because it's backed by all the big, powerful unions just like yours. Okay. Now, on the back side of the certificate, there's going to be a section for assignment. And that's where the negotiated cost is of the funeral. All right. On the lines below here, those are where you're going to write all your arrangements. This is literally going to cover everything for you. Your ground opening, your ground closing, plot, memorial cards, tombstone. Everything's completely taken care of with your freedom of choice. Okay. Then the funeral director simply signs as the witness, and your beneficiary and best friend signs here. So any remaining balance immediately goes back to the family. This is the cleanest, most compassionate way to take care of what's inevitably going to happen to all of us. Okay. Now, do you have any questions on how that's going to work for you, Jake?
No, it makes sense.
Awesome. So there's a couple very important numbers that I want to go over. So the first one's the 1-800 number on the front side here. This is going to be the number that the funeral director calls to make sure that your program is active. And after we're finished here today, it will be. The second number that they're going to ask is, how much money did you leave your family for your funeral? Now, if you or your family members went into a funeral home bragging that you had $30,000 for a funeral, how much do you think that funeral is magically going to cost now?
Probably gonna cost the whole amount.
It'll probably be more, right? Because unfortunately, the funeral home is the third most profitable business, and they take advantage of people while they're grieving. It shouldn't happen that way, Jake. We don't allow it to happen that way, and neither does the union. Okay. So, whatever the negotiated amount that your family comes up with, they're going to write that dollar amount in there, but you're never going to disclose it to the funeral home. Okay. Do you have any questions on how this funeral benefit is going to work for you?
No, that makes sense.
Do you see why the union set this up for all the members to make sure they're protected?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something, Jake. If you didn't have this, what would your wife Janet do?
I have no idea.
Well,
Always pay the credit card.
from this day forward, man, you never have to worry about it again. Okay. So what the union did was they put together a couple different options for you. So for that elite family care plan of the weekly contribution of $25, what that's going to cover you for is a $20,000 funeral. Okay. Now, we just discussed the average cost of a funeral was about $12,000, right? Do you have any idea why they recommend 20,000 for you?
No, why?
Well, it's because of inflation. So just like the price of milk and bread and gas is increasing, they anticipate the cost of a funeral to increase as well. Now, you and Janet, you guys are 24, 25 years old. You're young, healthy individuals. Realistically, you don't use this thing till you're happy, healthy, and 100, right? It's going to be 40, 50, 60, 70 years down the road, okay? And just because of inflation, we want to make sure that you're protected for the future and not just for today's needs, okay? So the $20,000 is going to be what they call a partial inflation program to not just cover you for today, but cover you for later on down the road when you need it the most, okay? Now, on top of that, the most important thing that you guys have in your life is the 3 children, right? So for all 3 of the kids, each of them are going to be covered for $10,000 each. Then at age 21, they can convert this to $50,000 of permanent coverage, and there's no medical questions asked. Now, with every single day becoming more difficult for our young children with childhood diabetes and asthma, it makes it hard for them to get protection like this. Now, not only are you taking care of yourself and your kids, you're also taking care of your grandkids as well, because they're never going to have to worry about this later on down the road because of what mom and dad did. Now, that, Jake, is how you leave a legacy. Okay. But just like we talked about with you being a young, healthy stud the way you are, if you were going to pass away tomorrow, do you think it would be from old age, cancer, or freak what?
Big accident.
Freak accident, right? Just based off of statistics, man, and especially what you do for a living, working on the power lines the way that you do, man, if any type of accidental death were to occur, you're covered for $150,000. And that's not just for you, that's also for the missus as well. Okay. Now, the kids are going to be covered as well. Out of respect to the families, I don't like to mention it, but you can see the numbers here. All right. Now, if God forbid you were working on one of those power lines and one of those days, something happened and you didn't come home, what would that $150,000 do for Janet and the kids?
It would make sure they keep the same lifestyle, right?
Absolutely, man. It would alleviate such of a burden, you know what I mean, to make sure that they could still afford the house, still afford all the monthly bills, still keep food on the table for the kids. Because there's going to be a huge adjustment period. Now, Jake, $150 isn't worth it to lose her best friend, but it definitely gives her a little bit of peace of mind and knowing that you protected her to make sure that her and the kids were never going to have to worry about this. All right. Now that is going to be on top of the $20,000 that you have for your funeral as well. So your funeral benefits taken care of. Any remaining balance goes to the family. They also would get $150,000 on top of it. Okay. Now the most dangerous thing that we do every day is drive our cars, and it's partially because of the frequency that we do it. All right. People aren't driving at 10 and 2 anymore. They're driving at 12 and cell phone. Right. Now, in most cases, a company will cover you for less money for a more dangerous activity. But the union supports their members and the police officers and the firefighters, so they protect you for even more. So you and Janet are both covered for $200,000 each for any type of automotive death, whether you're driving or whether you're a passenger in the car. All right. And then the last thing here is common carrier death. Do you guys know what common carrier is?
No idea.
Common carrier is anything that you pay a fare for. So planes, trains, buses, taxi, Uber. This is basically like your traveler's insurance for the rest of your life. You never have to worry about this again. Okay. And then again, this is going to be the nest egg coverage that if anything happened is going to go back to Janet and the kids to make sure they can continue to lead that lifestyle that you always wanted them to. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop killing you off for a second, Jake. I'm just going to hurt you a little bit because the best part about the program that the union put together is the living benefits. Okay. Now, this is the stuff that's going to pay you for all the bumps and bruises along the way. They wanted to add something into the program that you didn't have to pass away in order to collect on. Okay. So I know that you told me earlier you play basketball. If you roll your ankle or you get hit with an elbow and you got to get stitches or something like that, what's your typical copay?
$50.
50 bucks. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're anything like me, man, 50 bucks is 50 bucks. And, you know, if you have to miss work for a couple of days because you rolled your ankle or something like that, who's paying you now that you're not working?
Nobody.
We are. Because for any type of accident that you have on or off the job, if it's an in and out visit to the emergency room, urgent care, it could be a rolled ankle, like we said. If Janet's cooking, she slips, cuts her finger, needs stitches, or if any of the 3 kids are roughhousing around, there's no limit or cap to how many times that you can use this. You guys are going to get paid $250 for every single one of those visits. The only thing is you got to seek treatment within 72 hours or 3 days. So if you did roll your ankle and you toughed it out for a few days, it's not going to pay you anything. But as long as you seek treatment within those 3 days, this $250 is going back to you. All right. Now, the next benefit is going to cover you for $500 per day if you're confined overnight in the hospital. Okay. Now, if you were like in a bad car accident, you're laid up in the hospital for 10 days, a few bad things are going to be happening, right? First thing is you're going to be out of work for 10 days, so you're not getting what?
Not getting money.
Not getting paid, right? But guess what's not going to stop coming? The bills. So if you're laid up in the hospital for 10 days, $500 for those 10 days is $5,000 that's going to go to you and your family. Now, the beautiful thing is it doesn't go to the doctor or the hospital. It goes right back into your bank account for you. It's there to make up for the lost income with you out of work. Because most of our union families, if they're not working, they're not getting paid, right? And the last thing is any type of intensive care or ICU, they double the benefit again from $500 to $1,000. And that, Jake, is to help make up for the lost income of 2 people. Because if you're laid up in the hospital in ICU, where do you think Janet's going to be?
Right next to me.
She's going to be right by your side, man. And if, God forbid, any of those kids were in the ICU, you and Janet would go broke before you let anything happen to them, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm losing you, bud. My computer